In this video, I'm going to be using the snapping tools as well as instances to put together a modular dungeon. So the first thing we're going to do is see what we kind of have to work with. And again, this is a really simple example. So we have really low poly stuff. So again, this is our plane floor. You can see it's literally just a plane. Now we have our tile floor. You'll notice that these two are in the exact same spot effectively. I can turn the grid on so you can see stuff. This is what we're considering a corner piece. It's literally just a box. Now we have our door. It's more of a doorway, a wall, and then a light, a chest, and a pillar. So right here we have our two floor pieces. Again, really similar, but what I want you to notice is these little corners right here, here and here, these vertices all line up. So again, plane with a floor, tile floor, again, they're effectively the exact same size. So just to make this easier, what I'm going to do is select both of these, right click, and do edit color. And we're going to make these a light green color. So again, now I can instantly look at this and know that floor equals light green. And let's actually put these on the bottom. So the next is going to be this corner piece as well as a door and a wall. So the corner piece, different than the other ones, but the door and the wall, I want you to notice this little side profile, when I kind of switch between these two, stays exactly the same. So one can butt right up against the other one. So again, corner, door, wall. Go ahead and do a edit color and we'll make these, let's say, a brown color. And then we have these little kind of decorative items. We have the light, the chest, and the pillar. I'm going to go ahead and just make these, let's go ahead and make those pink. So now, instantly looking at this, I can kind of see how these are grouped together, and that should probably help things out later on, because again, my brain can see color faster than it can see all the different words and associate those. So the next thing, you probably already noticed it, but all of these pieces are dead center. So again, we have our x-axis in the blue, or I'm sorry, in the red, and our z-axis in the blue. And again, this is sitting like right dead center. If I go to the side view, this is kind of the floor plane. It's sitting right on the floor plane. And every single one of these, its bottommost vertice is sitting right on the floor. And this is very intentional. So what we want to do is right now these don't have a proper unwrap. They're just kind of modeled as they are. But effectively, they're building blocks that I could use to start building a dungeon. But the thing that I don't want to do is, let's say that we have this door right here. Maybe later on I'm going to decide that I want to kind of extrude this up and do something weird with it. If I already have, three of these doorways placed in the scene, I don't want to have to go back and change every single one of those. So what I'm going to use is instances to help out with this. And then the instances I'll place around the scene. So the next thing I want you to notice is down here under transform, we have position, all these set to 0, rotation, all those set to 0, and scale, it's at 100%. If I click on any one of these meshes, all these values, not including the camera, all these values are the same. But clicking on the camera, you can see that it is moved over, rotated down a little bit, etc. But again, all of these building blocks, I have these all set to 0. If for whatever reason one of yours aren't set to 0, you can hit this little 0 right here and 0 its position, rotation, or set its scale back to 100%. So now that we have kind of some building blocks to work with, the process for building this is going to be as follows. So let's start with the floor. So what we're going to do is right click, go to duplicate, and do instance. So what this is going to do is it's going to make an instance, go ahead and turn that on, of our floor called plain floor with a little quotes 2. It's the second one made. You can see it's kind of italicized. The other thing that you'll notice is this one is blue, this one is pink. So you can kind of think of this one as the child of this one in a sense. So if I go ahead and move this over, let's turn this one on as well. Now if I make a change to this one the same change is going to happen over here. So that would be a modeling change, an unwrap change, applying a material to it. Pretty much anything I do to this geometry is going to happen to this geometry. So let's undo a few times. But the kind of different thing here, let's go ahead and turn our wireframe off, is I can't go to a sub-element mode and select it on this anymore. Because again, if I wanted to select a polygon here, I'd actually have to go to this plane, hit the polygon. So the trick with this is I want to move this plane around, but keep the parent plane where it's originally positioned. So to do this, what I'm going to do is, let's have them both visible, is I'm going to have this plane selected right here. I can't select its polygons. I'm going to go down to this little drop down right here and hit Part. So hotkey for that is 5. So again, if I have polygon selected, I hit 5, it's going to, you can see this now has a little check on it. So now the part is selected. So now the part technically is over here. The part is the instance. So if I hit W, what's going to happen is I move this one, and this one stays right where it was. So from here, what I can do is, let's say I want to duplicate this again. So do instance. We don't want to actually duplicate it. Creating an instance is a type of duplication. We're still in that part mode, so I can move that over here. So now I have kind of one right here, and here is our original one. Other handy thing about being in part mode is technically if I click on this, now that one's selected, I can click on this one, I can click on this one, so I can click on, go ahead and make some of these other ones visible. I can click on these different mesh items over here, and since part mode is selected, it will select those individually. Let's go ahead and turn those off. So now what I'm going to do is, let's select this plane. We're in that part mode still. W to move. So now what I can do is I can just left click or right click and it'll snap to this. So this is one thing that, if you're doing the left click method, make sure that you can rotate around and see that it's snapped to that vertice, because the last thing you'd want would it to look like it's snapped like this and then move it the wrong way. But regardless, as long as it's snapped there, I can go ahead and left click, snap that in place. Now I can select this one, go to the move tool, snap this one in place. So effectively I have this one in the center of the scene. That doesn't necessarily have to be the one that's right there, but when I built this from distance from here to here is 2 meters. It's a little 2-meter square. So I'm effectively building on a 2-meter grid. So if I wanted to, I could turn the grid mode on, set that to 2 meters. But since I'm going to be placing treasure chests and stuff like that, I might not always want to have it that same way. So the next thing I could do is say, let's look at the tile floor. Right click, duplicate, instance. Now I can go ahead and hit move, right click, I can snap this in place. The other thing, if I'm in, make sure that's moved, just hit the undo button one too many times. If I'm in part mode up here, what I can do as a hotkey is if I hit Control D, again this doesn't work in vertice edge or polygon mode, Control D, over here you'll notice another tile floor kind of pops in place and it'll be right on top of this one. So then what I can do is grab that, Control D, right click on the corner, snap it over here. Maybe I want to do every other one, so this one doesn't really need to be here. We will go ahead, let's just move it out of the way. Make sure that we're snapping to the right corner. Like for this one, for instance, I wouldn't want to snap to this corner and snap it, because then, again, it'd be below the floor plane. I want to click on this bottom one. And then I can snap it to this vertex. And again, I can zoom in and make sure it's snapped how I want it to be. So then again, I can take this guy, Control D, duplicates it, right click, snap it over here. And then again, I can just confirm that that's snapped. And at any time, I can click on this plane floor, hold shift, click on this one, You can kind of see how this is working out. So the next thing, let's actually, like looking at this little floor, it might be sticking up, the little tiles might be sticking up too high. So to adjust that really easily, I can adjust all at the same time. I click on my tile floor here, go to polygon mode, click every one of these, switch to move. Let's actually turn snapping off. I can move these all down. Maybe I want to take this one, move it up a little bit, take this one, move it down, just make these a little bit uneven. Maybe even do a little cut from here to here. Make sure I'm cutting this the right way. From here to here, maybe pull this up a little bit. But regardless, as soon as I make a change to one, you can see that change happens throughout. So the next thing we can do is, let's actually go ahead and build out a little 9x9 grid. Control D to duplicate, right click, snap this over here. Just want to make sure that's snapping right. It is. Grab this one, Control D to duplicate, switch to my move tool. And the thing I got to be wary of is like the snapping right here. I don't want to accidentally snap this again up here. I want it to be snapped to that bottom one. So now I effectively have a little floor that I can work with. The other thing that I can do is technically I can grab all of these at one time, do Control D. Again, this is kind of a big move at once. Slam this over here, Control D, click that one right there, and I can move a lot of pieces at once. You can see it starts to get a little bit messy over here. So just to keep this demo simple, we'll go ahead and undo that. But the other thing I can do is as soon as things start to get messy, I can grab all these, do Control G, G for group. And then from here, I can just go ahead and rename this and say plain floor group or something like that, and that'll be potentially easier to work with. So we're keeping it fairly simple, so I'll just leave these all out so we can see them all. So let's turn on a wall piece. Let's kind of place our first wall piece. So this guy, I can't hit Control D on him because what that's going to do is make two meshes that are independent from one another. I want it to be an instance, so I'm going to right click, duplicate instance, and now this instance I can snap right here, snap this right here, and I have kind of my first wall piece. Again, I have the instance selected, Control D, right click. So now what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm not snapping to this top piece, because then you can see these two pieces no longer line up. I want to make sure that I'm snapping to the bottom floor. And again, this one, the floor is kind of coming through a little bit. Realistically, that's not going to be a big deal. And from here, let's maybe move this one over right here. Again, it's probably, oh, it didn't. Okay, it's probably going to want to snap to that other one. So from here, we can go ahead and grab the door, duplicate, instance, W to move, grab that bottom vert, and this one we're just going to move straight back. Snap it. So the other thing that might be helpful is, again, I'm seeing this all in wireframe. If I hit the O key, go to inactive mesh, do make the same as other ones, or to be proper, make inactive same as active, so then I can see all these. So the only downfall with this process is if I turn off the master wall, all the other walls are going to shut off. So a way to kind of counteract this is I can grab all these instances, let's say, and I can move these over. Let's move them over a set amount. So let's do -8 meters. So again, I was building on a square of 2 meters, so again, keeping it in powers or multiples of 2 is going to be fine. And again, that center piece I actually had, turn our wireframe on. That center piece was actually, I was relying on the actual mesh. So let's take one of these, Control D to duplicate. Snap that, zoom in, make sure it's right, and then we're good. So from here, when I'm doing this, I could technically either have the floor sitting on top of, or the wall sitting on top of the floor, or I could grab this whole thing, and again, I have multiple meshes selected. I could move this back, oops, make sure that snaps, and do something like this where the walls actually aren't meeting up or sitting on top of the floor. If that's the case right here, I'm going to have to address this in some way. I could just grab another floor piece, duplicate, move back, and again, just to make sure that we're perfect, I just want to zoom in and make sure that it's snapping to the right one. So again, over here, I have all these visible. At any time, I could make them invisible. But again, if I make the master invisible, all the other ones become invisible as well, at least with how I'm working right now. So from here, what we have is, let's actually close that. Let's actually use this corner piece. Go ahead and do duplicate instance. Go to move that. And again, it's kind of hard to see what's going on, so I'm just going to move this out of the way. Then I'm going to right click so it can snap to that vertex. And again, you can see when this is moving, sometimes it'll snap close, sometimes it'll snap up here, because again, it's really whatever vertex you have it on. Something like that. Duplicate, right click. Actually, I clicked the wrong one. There we go. So you can see how really quickly we can go in and start building stuff. The other thing I could do is maybe grab both of these walls, hold Control, rotate those both at the same time. And again, if I accidentally hit like polygon mode or something like that, I can just hit 5 or go up to here and hit that part mode, and I can grab just one of those at a time. And I'm just moving it out of the way so I get a better view. Move it back. Same thing with this one. And again, you can see this one where it's kind of doing that little up and down snap thing. And again, I hit Shift A to reset my view. I can just come in here and make sure that that's snapped correctly, which it is. So from here, maybe I want to grab both of these, Control D, W, move these out, snap, Control D, and snap. So again, really quickly, you can see how this is building out and making life a lot easier. Next thing we could do, have this pillar right here. We could instance him as well. Go ahead and just move him out of the way. So this one, I could have him snap to a specific vertex, or I could just have him, make sure I'm moving on the right axis, turn snapping off. Since this is just kind of a decorative prop in the center of the room, this one doesn't necessarily have to snap. I mean, I could turn on snapping, but what I'm going to do is make sure that these pillars are on these lower sections, so again, they're not clipping through the areas right here. Oh, and it looks like at some point I actually accidentally snapped that up to this level, so we'll just snap it down, deactivate, reactivate our move tool, and now we'll go ahead and move it. Let's make sure this one, there we go. Just making sure that it's snapped the right way. So again, these pillars, this would be pretending like there's a roof here, but again, if this was a top-down game, we could kind of see into it. And again, same thing with that chest, we could populate that around. So I'm guessing you're getting the gist of how this works. I can copy big, huge pieces at once, duplicate, move, snap, snap. Could grab the whole thing. Oh, we're rotating that a weird way. Actually won't go into that one. Technically we could group this, so turn this into its own piece, so Control G, and then this group we could then rotate around. We don't want to rotate around the right spot, but again, if it was in a group, it would behave normally. We would just want to make sure this group is at 0, 0. But again, we'll go into that one in just a little bit. But next thing that I wanted to get to is this little light scenario. So let's go ahead and turn off. This actually might be a good time. This plain floor, since this is kind of our master one, I'm going to turn this to green instead of the light green. Tile floor, change this one to green instead of light green. Same thing with the walls. There's not really a dark brown. We can change it to red. And this is just so it's easier for me to keep track of what's going on with this. And these ones we will just change their color to, let's do purple. So, go ahead and disable all these real quick. I guess those walls, they shouldn't be a problem. But, oops, this one right here is the light. So what I want to do with this is I want to do something a little bit special. So this guy, I don't want to actually have to repopulate lights over and over again. So what I'm going to do is add item, light. We're just going to do a point light. Other thing, I might not be able to see my light, so I could either go to the setup tab, or if I hit the O key, go to visibility and go to show lights. Again, our directional lights right here, we're going to ignore him, but this one right here is our point light. So I'm going to place this one, oops, let's actually turn off snapping to make this easier. Right here, point light properties, light color, let's change this to, say, a red color just so we can see it. Maybe even a little bit more towards orange. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this point light and nest it right inside of our light right here. And that's called parenting. So I just parented the point light to the mesh item called light. And I know that that's parented if it has this little down over arrow. If I click this little down arrow right here, you can see that the child item kind of temporarily disappears. So this is a little hierarchy. So now what I can do is select the light geometry, right click, go down to duplicate, and we have instance hierarchy. So let the left click that. So now what we get is, again, you saw the light got a little bit more intense. And again, the lighting got a little bit weird because we have an instance light. But now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and drag this, and you can see that it instantly got light over here. So let's move him. Oh, we'll just set him right here. Control D, and it'll take the light right with it. It did a kind of an instance of the already instance object. It just made another instance of it. So now the light kind of went with it. So now let's turn, oh, the pillar needs to be on, the corner piece, the plain floor, and what am I missing? The wall. So now what we have is I can grab this little guy, move him around at any time, and that light's going to actually go with him. So again, if I change the geometry of the original light, or if I change the properties of that light, it'll update for us, so we don't have to do that twice in a sense. So real quick with these parented items, normally I could just grab, go to item mode or part mode, grab everything, and I could move it over. But what you'll notice is, pay attention to the lights. If I grab this and move it over, the lights are moving twice as fast as everything else. They're going twice as far. And the reason behind this is because I was in part mode and I just actually turn that wireframe off, or turn the vertex off. I had everything selected, which in this case I had the parent and the child selected. Normally you want just the parent selected and you'll move it and the child goes with it. But if you have the parent and the child's going to go twice as far, because effectively I'm making the parent move over and I'm making the child move over. Because again, the child can move independently of the parent. But if I move the parent, the child has to follow in a sense. So if I wanted to move all this stuff back to where it was, kind of in the center of the scene, I can hit 5, and then I can just deselect these. So again, I can either deselect them from the hierarchy, or over here, hold Control, click on the light, hold Control, tap on that light. And now I can move these over here. Again, if I want it to be perfect, I can just hit 8 meters, hit Enter, and now this is kind of back to where it was in the center of that scene. And another quick trick that you could do is, let's say, let's turn this guy on. Your building blocks, let's go ahead and grab all those. Those are going to be the ones that are actual meshes. Holding Control, left clicking, pillar, chest, and light. So I can take all these in part mode and I can move them down below the floor. So again, since I'm not moving them in polygon mode, all the instances stay where they are. So let's do, say, -3 meters. Again, if I had one selected, I moved the whole thing in polygon mode, the other ones would move with it. But since I moved it in item mode, those are now just below the world. So again, now I can kind of build it world center, and it should be a little bit easier to work with. Yep, so something I just noticed right over here, this must have been hidden when I moved everything over, so not a big deal at all. What I'm going to do is, again, it's still based off our original one, so our position in X, Y, and Z, I can either move these one at a time, or if I hit this little circle right here, I can hit 0, hit Enter, that zeroes out all of them, puts it right back in this scene at 0, 0, 0. Hit my move tool, X to turn on snapping, and I can just snap this. And again, I have the lighting turned on, so if I just hit the O key, show lights, turn that off, right click, I can snap that right back to where it was. There we go, it looks better. So as far as finalizing this goes, if you're just going to render it inside a motor, you can leave these all as instances. It wouldn't really be a big deal. But if for whatever reason you needed to turn this all into geometry, what you can do is, over here it's currently set to an instance. I could just right click, go down to change type, and hit mesh. So you can see that right now it's the little pink cube indicating it's an instance. Change it to mesh. Now it changed to a blue one. Now I can select its sub-elements, move those, change them, do whatever I want with them. Let's just hit undo and get that back to an instance. There we go. But at this point, just remember that, like, we have this wall right here. If I switch to polygon mode, I can see that this is the wall. Know that this wall is still connected to all these walls. They're still linked. So if I do anything to this wall, if I do a modeling change, let's say I extrude the top, scale that down, these all get that exact same treatment. The same thing would happen with unwraps. So this is a really, really powerful way to work. You can start kind of concepting out your room, but then still have the power to change things. So the next thing I wanted to mention was something that kind of helps with organization. So we already did the color scenario, but if I was working on this, again, all these instances get kind of messy. So I would left click to select a non-instance, hold Control, left click. I'm just going to go in holding Control and left clicking on all these, so I grab all the non-instances. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to left click on one of these and kind of drag it up and then down so it kind of reorders. So you can see that all these kind of just snap up to the top. So at this point, all of our kind of master meshes that we would modify, unwrap, change the model of whatever, are all right here. And again, those kind of correlate to all these meshes right here. So I want to demonstrate one more thing, and that is if we want to build modularly, but then kind of take it one level deeper and do kind of room building. So again, we could think of this right here as one room that was made. It could connect to another room. So if we wanted to kind of duplicate this entire thing, we can grab our light up here, go all the way down, hold shift, grab the tile floor. So again, this grabs every single instance. Then I want to hit the 5 key, so I'm in item mode, and I can hit W and make sure that I can move that. And you can see, let's actually turn snapping off initially. When I move this, it all moves just fine, but when I go to rotate it, it's going to rotate based on each item. So what we can do to prevent this is up here we have our action center. We can click on this. Most likely it's going to be set to none. You can see none of them are highlighted, so I'm going to switch this to automatic. And you can see that the little move widget, or the rotate widget, kind of moved a little bit. So now if I go to rotate this, the whole piece is moving. So now what I can do is I can do Control D, and you can see that kind of duplicated everything that we have. Hit W to move, and I can just slide that out. And now I can hit E to rotate, hold Control, rotate around that 180 degrees. So now to snap this, I can hit W to move, or again use our move tools over here, turn on our snapping with the X key or hitting up here. Then I can just right click right here, and you'll notice this guy, since I rotated it, it was rotating by the center mass, and there's kind of more things are favored. If we look at the ground and the walls, everything is really symmetrical. We have this pillar here, this light here, and this light here, so kind of the center mass of this thing is offset up a little bit. So when we rotated it, it kind of the whole thing moved up because it rotated not on the center axis in a sense. But that really doesn't matter because we can just snap it right here, and since everything else is snapped, now we kind of turned this kind of single room into a double room. And the other thing, I haven't really deselected anything yet. This whole element right here is still selected. What I can do is hold Control and hit G, and that is going to group that entire subset. So let's actually move this one all the way to the bottom. Give it a second to get down there. So now when I open this up, now there's all those pieces in here. So again, I can grab this one. This was our original one. Hold Shift, click the top, Control G, and I can call this room section 1, room section 2, and now this room section 2, I could maybe go in here and replace, let's say, this wall with a door and then connect a different room over here. So again, I can use this as a starting point so I don't have to kind of do everything from scratch every time or build everything one piece at a time. And again, once you start getting kind of multiple of these going, you can really start accessing the power of this and build kind of multiple rooms at a time. And again, just be mindful that every time you duplicate stuff, it gets more and more messy over here. So again, having a higher resolution so I can see more meshes over here, potentially coloring these and naming them a little bit better. All of that's going to be really, really important. And again, just really quick demonstrating the power of this one more time. I can come in here, do that quick modeling change. And again, I do this one because it's easy. I extrude this, pull it up. Oops, hit the wrong hotkey. Actually, I'm grabbing this wall. I want to grab this wall. There we go. So grab this polygon, zoom out so you can see everything at once, extrude it. Let's turn snapping off. pull it up a little bit. And actually, just so you guys can see my mistake, I went to scale this in, but it's still set to automatic. So how automatic works is it has this little cyan cross. So I can click and move this wherever I want. And realistically, I was trying to get the cyan circle and it was just, I was off a little bit. So I can either reset the position of my tool by just activate move and then reactivate scale. I can reset this by just going to none, and then that'll reset it. And then if I need to go back to automatic, I can click automatic and it stays at that center. But regardless, I can grab this, scale it in, and you can see all these wall pieces are scaling in. So again, really, really powerful way to work. Once you get, just undoing a few times, once you get to this level where you're really building stuff out, I would probably wait until you have stuff unwrapped, you have stuff textured, so you can kind of see how everything feels together. But just when you're initially testing stuff out, it's perfectly fine to keep these in kind of a working as-is state. Your big kind of fall off or benefit or kind of detriment would be if I went in and I scaled this wall a different way. Now none of these are snapped together. They're not fitting that kind of 2-meter box that I'd put everything in. So you just have to be careful when editing stuff. So hopefully in this video, the use of instances and snapping made using modular pieces to make a modular environment made that a little bit easier for you. Again, if you have any questions about this process at all, feel free to shoot me an email or ask me in class.